I was the queen's most trusted spy. She poisoned me when I became too powerful. I woke up as her new lady-in-waiting, the girl she's training to be her next spy. She doesn't know I remember. She doesn't know I'm watching her the way she once watched me. She doesn't know I've already won. The wine tasted like honey. That was the last thing I remembered. Honey, and something else, something bitter, something wrong. I'd been drinking wine for 30 years. I knew the taste of poison. I knew the way it coated the tongue, the way it burned the throat, the way it settled in the stomach like a stone. I just didn't expect it from her. Queen Seraphina. My queen. My friend. The woman I'd served for 2 decades. The woman I'd killed for. Lied for, bled for. She'd found me as a starving orphan on the streets of the capital. I was 9 years old, thin as a rail, fighting a dog for a scrap of bread. She'd watched me for a full minute before she spoke. "What's your name, child?" "Lyra," I'd said, not looking up from the dog. "Lyra." She'd knelt beside me, heedless of her silk gown. "How would you like to never be hungry again?" I'd looked at her then. Really looked. She was beautiful in the way that knives are beautiful, sharp, dangerous, impossible to look away from. "I'd like that," I'd said. She'd smiled. "Then come with me." I'd followed her. I'd followed her for 20 years. And now she was poisoning my wine. I looked across the table at her. She was smiling, the same smile she'd worn when she told me I was family, when she promised to protect me, when she said she loved me. Her dark hair was pinned up in the elaborate style she favored for small dinners. Her gown was deep blue, the color of midnight. She looked like a queen. She looked like a friend. She looked like neither. "Drink up, Lyra," she said. "It's your favorite." I raised the cup. Drank. Tasted honey. Tasted betrayal. Tasted the bitter almond undertone of the poison she'd used a dozen times before on a dozen other enemies. "Why?" I whispered. Her smile didn't falter. "You know too much, Lyra. You've always known too much. I can't have my secrets walking around in a body that knows how to use a knife." I tried to stand. My legs wouldn't move. The room was spinning, the candles blurring, the queen's face growing distant. I'd been poisoned before. I'd trained myself to resist most toxins. But this was different. This was something she designed specifically for me. "I loved you," I said. "I know." She reached across the table, touched my cheek. Her hand was warm, gentle, the same hand that had held mine when I made my first kill, when I'd wept afterward, when she told me that tears were a luxury I couldn't afford. "That's what made you dangerous." I fell. The floor was cold. The darkness was warm. I felt my heart slowing, my breath fading, my mind slipping. The last thing I heard was her voice, soft and gentle, the same voice she'd used to comfort me after nightmares, after missions, after the long, lonely nights when I couldn't sleep. "Goodbye, Lyra. Thank you for your service." Then nothing. I woke to sunlight. Warm sunlight, streaming through curtains I didn't recognize. A room that smelled of lavender and fresh linens. A bed that was too soft, too large, too comfortable. The kind of bed reserved for the queen's favorites, the ones she wanted to keep close, the ones she was training to be useful. I sat up so fast the world tilted. My hands, small hands, soft hands, a girl's hands, clutched at a blanket embroidered with silver thread. My hair, long, blonde, unfamiliar, fell across my face. My body was wrong. Too young. Too weak. Too innocent. I was young. 16, maybe 17. I was in the palace. I was a lady-in-waiting. A woman burst through the door. Older, elegant, her face lined with authority. The queen's handmaiden. I recognized her from my first life. Her name was Helena. She'd been with the queen for 40 years. She'd helped her poison me. "Ilara," she said. "You're awake. The queen has requested your presence. She has a special assignment for you." Ilara. That was my name now. Not Lyra. Not the spy. Not the weapon who'd served for 20 years and been discarded when she knew too much. I was the queen's new recruit. The girl she was training to be her next shadow. The girl who would kill for her, lie for her, die for her. The girl who would eventually be poisoned when she became a threat. I smiled. Of course. Tell Her Majesty I'll be there shortly. Helena nodded and left. I sat in the silk sheets, in the lavender-scented room, in the body of my own replacement, and I began to plan. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know I remembered. She didn't know that the spy she'd murdered had just become the spy she was training. She thought Alara was a blank slate, a girl she could mold into whatever she needed. She had no idea that the girl was already molded, already trained, already ready. I was going to make her pay. The first weeks were a blur of confusion and grief. My new body was young and strong, but untrained. I had to learn to move in it, to fight in it, to be someone new. I had to remember to call the Queen Your Majesty and not Seraphina. I had to remember to smile when she praised me and not flinch when she touched me. She was kind to me. That was the hardest part. She was kind in the same way she'd been kind to Lyra all those years ago. She gave me gifts. She praised my progress. She told me I was special. She was grooming me, just like she'd groomed Lyra, just like she'd groomed a dozen others before me. I played along. I smiled when she expected me to smile. I nodded when she expected me to agree. I performed the role of the grateful orphan, the eager student, the loyal servant. But inside, I was watching. Always watching. I learned everything about her. Her habits, her routines, her secrets. She woke at dawn, took breakfast in her chambers, held court in the throne room. She was paranoid, controlling, obsessed with loyalty. She trusted no one. Not her husband, not her children, not her advisors. She was also lonely. That was the hardest part. She had no friends, no family, no one she truly trusted. Her husband was a political arrangement. They hadn't shared a bed in years. Her children were raised by servants and feared her. Her advisors were yes-men who told her what she wanted to hear. I was the closest thing she had to a confidant. She told me things she told no one else. Fears, doubts, regrets. She told me about the weight of the crown, the burden of power, the loneliness of being queen. She told me about the spy she'd poisoned, the one who'd known too much, the one who'd been like a daughter to her. I loved her, the queen said one night, when she drunk too much wine. We were in her private chambers, the fire low, the candles flickering. She was staring into the flames, her face soft in a way I rarely saw. She was the only one who truly understood me. What happened to her? I asked, though I already knew. The queen was quiet for a long moment. She became a threat. I couldn't let her live. I poured her more wine. You did what you had to do, Your Majesty. She looked at me, really looked, and something flickered in her eyes. Recognition. Fear. A memory she couldn't quite place. You remind me of her, she whispered. The way you move, the way you speak, the way you look at me like you see right through me. I smiled. I'm honored, Your Majesty. She nodded slowly, looked away, drank her wine. I watched her drink, watched her sleep, watched her dream. She didn't know I was the spy she'd murdered. She didn't know I was waiting for the perfect moment. She didn't know that every kind word, every gentle touch, every moment of trust was bringing her closer to the edge. I was patient. I'd learned patience from her. I'd learned that the best revenge wasn't quick, it was slow. It was watching your enemy destroy herself while you smiled and nodded and pour her wine. The training was brutal. She pushed me harder than she'd pushed anyone. Longer hours. More dangerous missions. Higher stakes. She was testing me, seeing how far I would go. How much I would sacrifice. Whether I would break. I didn't break. I'd already broken once. I'd died. I'd come back. There was nothing she could do to me that was worse than what she'd already done. She sent me to steal documents from a rival lord. I stole them in my sleep. She sent me to seduce information from an enemy ambassador. I had him eating out of my hand within a week. She sent me to kill a man who'd betrayed her. I made it look like an accident. No one suspected. No one ever suspected. You're better than she was, the queen said one day, after I'd returned from a particularly dangerous mission. Faster. Smarter. More ruthless. I smiled. Thank you, Your Majesty. She didn't know that I was better because I'd already done all of this before. Because I'd learned from my mistakes. Because I'd had 20 years of practice before I ever set foot in her palace as a Lara.
She thought she was training me.
She was teaching me nothing I didn't already know. The first sign that something was wrong came in my second year. I was in the library reading when the Queen walked in. She didn't notice me at first. She went to the shelf where I'd spent hours studying, pulled out a book I'd written, a journal, hidden, filled with secrets I'd gathered over the past 2 years.
She opened it. Read.
Her face went pale. Who wrote this? She asked, her voice sharp. I stood. I did, Your Majesty. She stared at me. How do you know these things? I walked toward her.
Slowly.
Deliberately. I know a lot of things, Your Majesty. I know about the spy you poisoned. I know about the orphan you trained. I know about the secrets you've been hiding for 30 years. She stepped back. Her hand went to the dagger at her belt. You're lying. I'm not. I stopped in front of her. I'm Lyra, the spy you killed. I came back. Her face went white. That's impossible. Lyra is dead. I watched her die. Did you? I reached out, touched her cheek. You watched her body stop breathing. You didn't watch her soul. You didn't know that she'd been watching you for years. You didn't know that she'd learned to hide herself so well that even you couldn't find her. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Her hand was frozen on the dagger. What do you want? She whispered. I smiled. Everything. She didn't kill me. She couldn't. She needed me. I was her best spy, her most trusted agent, the only person in the world who knew all her secrets. If she killed me, she'd have to start over. Train someone new. Trust someone else. She couldn't do it. She was too old, too tired, too afraid. So she let me live. She watched me. She waited. She tried to find a way to destroy me without destroying herself. She couldn't. I'd made sure of that. Every secret she'd ever told me was documented, hidden, waiting to be released. Every ally she'd ever betrayed was waiting for revenge. Every enemy she'd ever made was circling, watching, waiting for her to fall. She was trapped. And she knew it. I chose the anniversary of my death for the final act. The Queen was holding a celebration. Music, dancing, wine. The great hall was filled with nobles, ambassadors, foreign dignitaries. Everyone who was anyone in the kingdom was there. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know I'd spent 3 years preparing for this moment. She thought I was still her loyal spy, her faithful servant, her grateful orphan. She was wrong. I walked into the great hall. No disguise. No hiding. Just me. The lady-in-waiting she'd trained, the spy she'd murdered, the ghost she'd created. The music stopped. The dancing stopped. Everyone turned to look at me. Hello, Your Majesty, I said. It's been a while. She stared at me from her throne. Confusion. Recognition. Fear. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, her voice sharp. I walked toward her. The guests backed away. The guards reached for their swords. You know what this is, I said. You've been waiting for it since the night you poisoned my wine. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I stopped in front of her. You killed me because I knew too much. But you forgot something. What? I taught you everything you know. But you didn't teach me everything I know. I reached into my cloak, pulled out a small vial. The same vial she'd used to poison me. I'd stolen it from her chambers years ago, replaced it with a fake, kept it as evidence. Remember this? Her face went white. You kept it. I kept everything. I held it up so the crowd could see. Every secret, every betrayal, every murder. I've been collecting them for 3 years. And tonight, I'm sharing them with the world. The room erupted. Gasps. Whispers. Guards shouting. Nobles demanding answers. The Queen stood. Guards. Arrest her. No one moved. They won't listen to you anymore, I said. I've been talking to them for years. They know the truth. They know what you are. You're lying. I'm not. I looked at the crowd. Ask them. Ask anyone. They'll tell you. One by one, the nobles began to speak. Accusations. Confessions. Evidence. The queen's secrets spilled out like blood from a wound.
She fell.
Not physically, she was still standing, still regal, still proud. But something in her broke. Something in her died. You, she whispered, looking at me. You did this. I did this, I agreed. I did this because you made me. You took a starving orphan and turned her into a killer.
You used me. You betrayed me.
You killed me. And now, I'm returning the favor. I turned, walked toward the door. Wait, she said. Please. I'll give you anything. Money. Power. A kingdom. Just. I don't want anything from you, I said. I want you to watch. I walked out of the great hall, out of the palace, out of her life. Behind me, I heard her scream. I didn't look back. The queen's empire crumbled within the year. Her secrets were exposed. Her allies abandoned her. Her enemies closed in from all sides. Her husband divorced her. Her children disowned her. Her advisors turned state's evidence. She died alone, in a small room, with no one to mourn her. The official cause was heart failure. The real cause was something else, something that couldn't be named, couldn't be proven, couldn't be mourned. I didn't go to her funeral. I didn't need to. I'd already buried her. Years ago, in the grave where she'd tried to put me. But I visited her grave once, just to make sure she was really gone.
She was.
And I was free. I didn't become the new queen. I didn't want power. I'd seen what power did to people. I'd seen what it had done to her. Turned a young idealist into a paranoid tyrant. Turned a woman who'd once loved into a woman who couldn't trust. I left the capital that night, walked out of the palace gates, and didn't look back. I traveled for years. Across the kingdom, across the sea, across the world. I saw places I'd never seen, met people I'd never known, lived a life I'd never imagined. I didn't use my real name. I didn't tell anyone who I was. I was just a traveler, a stranger, a woman passing through. It was enough. One day, years later, I returned to the palace. It had changed. The throne was gone. The guards were gone. The queen's chambers were a museum filled with relics of her reign, warnings about the cost of power. School children came on field trips to learn about her rise and fall. Historians wrote books about her paranoia, her cruelty, her loneliness. I walked through the halls where I'd served, where I'd died, where I'd been reborn. I stood in the room where she'd poisoned me. It was empty now, silent. The table where we'd sat was gone. The candles were gone. The only thing left was the floor, cold and hard, where I'd fallen. I sat on the floor, in the spot where I'd died, and I remembered. The honey, the betrayal, the darkness.
I didn't cry.
I didn't forgive. I just remembered. She was a part of me. She always would be. She'd made me who I was, the killer, the spy, the survivor. I hated her for it. I thanked her for it. I didn't know which was stronger. I stood, walked out, didn't look back. I live in a small house now, on the edge of a small village, in a country no one's ever heard of. I grow vegetables. I keep chickens. I watch the seasons change. No one knows who I am. No one knows what I've done. I'm just an old woman, living alone, minding her own business. Sometimes, late at night, I dream of the palace, the queen's face, the taste of honey. I wake up gasping, my hand on my throat, checking for poison that isn't there. Then I go back to sleep. It's over.
She's dead.
I'm alive. That's enough.